October 23rd. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine, but also Israel of late. So we're doing both. Let me get TikTok rolling here. Excuse me. Introduce yourselves while we are waiting. Ooh, all right. TikTok. Boom, boom. All right, there we go. It's like little gray hair sticking out. Annoying. All right, here's TikTok coming on. All right. Anyway, good morning, Australia, I guess, but good evening, the rest of you. Hey, Big Hawk. Whew, get myself adjusted. The sun is setting, so it'll be gone in a second, so it shouldn't interfere with too much. Once it has set. Putin having a heart. I saw nothing about Putin having a heart attack. No. Hey, Terry. Nothing about Putin having a heart attack. No, thank you, Macabre. Unless it comes from a really good news source, I wouldn't trust it. Hey, Huzzah. Thank you for that. Good evening, all. Was it Chazak and John? Otan in Norway. Oh, how are we all doing? Hey, Jetta, thank you for that. I'm tired today. I should not be tired after a long, not a long, but a weekend. Thank you, Alex. I can look. I did not see anything on Sky News about this. Oop. Peachum. What else we got? Peachum. Jetta sent the doc. All right, hold on. Let me just pull this up for heart. Nothing about a heart attack on Sky News. No. Not sure what you guys are talking about. Hey, Jeremy. Thank you, Milan. Yeah, there's nothing about hearts on Sky News. So unless it's way earlier, like off the page, which it could be. Who is that? Thank you, Shane and Hobbsy and Kankaranga. Just looking, guys, to see what else is on the page here. Oops, come on. All right, Sky News. I'm doing one last look here. Yeah, TikTok, I wouldn't trust anything unless it's from, a mainstream source. Heart. There's nothing about heart attacks on TikTok. I mean, on Sky News. I don't believe it. Anyway, Hamas asked Israel for a ceasefire. I don't know what is going on. We're going to talk about them. I don't know what's going on with them. Very confusing. Yeah, it figures it's only on the tabloid sites, which means somebody saw it in a Telegram chat and wrote about it. Thank you, Pedro, because that's what these guys do. Thank you, Alex, for the superpower. Yeah, I mean, again, see what the source. First thing to do with any of these news stories, check the source, right? My guess is, I guarantee you, it's going to say, according to a Telegram channel of somebody close to the Kremlin, and you're going to go, yeah, okay, great. I mean, I guarantee you that's what it's going to say. Take a look and see, but we can see anyway. Oh, does it say that? I knew it would say that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, don't believe that stuff. I mean, it's always interesting, but I wouldn't believe any of it. Hey, Daniel. We can always dream, folks. Yep. All right, guys, we can get rolling here. I always like to take a minute or two, just to kind of let folks say hi and give people a chance to mosey in. So welcome all. We got a good amount of news today. Thank you, Adam, for the gift there. Today is, what did I say? October 23rd, Monday. Thank you, Super Hornet, for the gift. I am John Aravosis, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. This is my daily show. Thank you for the pretty. Thank you. Try to keep the hair pretty. Appreciate it. It is what it is. But this is my daily show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where I talk about the latest news from Ukraine. And for the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about Israel as well, because I think the issues kind of go together from a defense perspective, superpower perspective, sort of worldwide war perspective. Hey, Daniel. So what I'll do is I'll start with Israel, and then we'll switch over to Ukraine for the second half. Typically, questions go for the second half of the show. The only exception I tend to make is for super chat questions on TikTok, because it's a way for people to pay for questions as a contribution. I will always get to those as the next thing I talk about. Otherwise, if you want to get my attention as well, feel free to do gifts on TikTok. I always try to do a shout out like there. Jules, thank you. And Ava, whenever I see the gift, the big gifts that go on the screen. If I see them, I will try to do a shout out. Sometimes I miss it. Thank you, Marcy, if I'm in the middle of reading something, but I usually am able to check it out. So thank you for that. And that's about it. I'll get started. But yeah, please do keep the gifts coming, guys. As I say, I do this for free. I do it full time. This is my job. So the gifts actually make it possible for me to do this. I pay my bills with your guys' gifts. So thank you for that. Hey, Anat, good to see you again. All right, guys, let me get rolling here. So we'll start with Israel, then go over to Ukraine. 2 more hostages were released by Hamas today. Very interesting. Hey, Chris. Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that's a very nice one. I appreciate that. And Carol for the hearts. 2 more women, elderly women aged around 79 and 85. The one might be 79 or 80, but around 79 years old and 85 years old, 2 older women who were taken hostage. Their husbands are still being held hostage. They are Israeli. There's no report about them saying that they're joint dual citizens or anything. Interesting on a couple of levels here. First of all, this would be hostage 3 and 4 that Hamas released, right? They released 2 American women this weekend who were not joint citizens. They were just Americans. They might have been Jewish, but they were just Americans. What's interesting about this is I'm not sure what Hamas is up to. Jake Tapper did an interview with one of his national security guys at CNN last week. And what was weird about it is he asked him and he said, for when the first 2 women were released, he said, why would you release them if you're Hamas? Like, why would you do it? And the national security guy at CNN said, well, it's very difficult to take care of 200 hostages. The number actually is up to 222 now, hostages that Hamas took. And he said it's very difficult to take care of the hostages, and they're probably getting rid of them because it's just too much trouble. And Jake had a really good response on CNN, and he said, "Why don't you just kill them?" He said, "Why would you do like a releasing them? Blah blah blah." He goes, "This is Hamas. They just killed." Yeah, but Callum, this was his answer. He goes, "They just killed 1,400 people. They killed like the family members of these people in the room with them, a lot of them. Why wouldn't you just kill them?" Right? I mean, you'd go through all the trouble of, okay, now we've got to send them back and you just shoot them. Right? So I'm saying it's a little weird. It is not just, it's a pain in the ass. That's not the only reason going on here. Clearly they're trying to get a publicity boost, but again, I'm not sure why. I mean, guys, my point is, you've got to look at the entire, I'm not even saying this in a critical way. I just don't get it, what's going on with these hostages. If you're Hamas, okay, you just slaughtered 1,400 people. Thank you, Ellie. The video was released at least to journalists today, and the journalists were able to see the video. I know one of the journalists that was in the room, he did a live blog of the video from Hamas's own like a dash cam, but the cams that are on, like the cameras the police have on them and the soldiers have on them. The Hamas guys had GoPros and other cameras, and they were taking videos, and Hamas released the videos. The Israelis put the package together and showed it to journalists, like GoPros exactly, showed them to journalists for about an hour and 20 minutes. And the journalists were mortified, of course, because it's the slaughter is incredible. Here's the thing. If you're Hamas, 2 weeks ago, you decided, let's go slaughter 1,400 Israeli citizens, and let's do it in just the most vicious public, and we're going to videotape it, right? Videotape. I'm old. We're going to record it, right? You wanted carnage. Thank you, Courtney. If you wanted carnage just 2 weeks ago, why are you trying to get goodwill by releasing hostages? The Aflac, by releasing hostages. Do you get what I'm saying? They're like, okay. Second possibility, Tree just raised up, a tactic to stall Israel's invasion. Again, very possible. We know the New York Times reported this weekend that American officials, basically Biden, talking to Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, Biden has told Netanyahu, we really want you to wait on the invasion of Gaza. Because, the idea here is, first, the Israelis are bombing Gaza to take out as much as they can of Hamas, and then they're going to invade and go street by street, which will be very difficult, very bloody, etc. And Biden said, we'd like you to wait, according to New York Times. Biden said, we'd like you to wait on the invasion until we finish the hostage negotiations. Thank you, Eva. And until we solidify sort of humanitarian aid, stuff like that. There was another convoy of trucks that went into Gaza this weekend, but of humanitarian aid, but the United Nations said, the convoy that went in was equal to 4% of the normal amount of humanitarian aid that comes in every day into Gaza, right? So it's nothing. It's nothing. But again, it's okay. So from an American perspective, I get why the Americans are asking Israel to hold off on the invasion, perhaps, right? But again, if you're Hamas, thank you, Annie. If you're Hamas, you wanted this invasion. This is what I'm saying, guys. Like, this story doesn't make sense. Okay. You killed the 1,400 civilians and you did it brutally and you filmed it. Thank you, Sean, because you wanted everybody to see you kill these civilians brutally. Okay. That was so you're not trying for goodwill. You wanted brutal shock. The analysis is from me and others, Hamas wanted to force Israel's hand. They wanted to be so vicious that Israel felt it didn't have a choice, that Israel politically, Israel's leader, again, 9/11 in America. It was so vicious and such a shock that political leaders had no alternative what else to do, right? That even if it was horrible, like invading Iraq was stupid, but the idea is putting that kind of pressure on the government. Hamas arguably wants Israel to invade, I was going to say Crimea, wants Israel to invade Gaza. They want Israel to kill civilians. That's the point. Thank you, Succeed, right? That's the point. So why would they now be trying to stop Israel from invading when they want, I mean, let's face it, guys, the press of the last week has not been great for Israel. And frankly, most of that press, I mean, a big chunk of that press was a hospital strike Israel didn't even do, that everybody screwed up. We now know it was Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It was Palestinian terrorists that did the hospital strike, right? But thank you, Wyam. But that is one more indication of if you're Hamas, if you're a terrorist group, why you want Israel attacking, right? If you're a terrorist group, you want Israel killing more civilians. So anyway, I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you, Lori. But think about, my only point is to keep an eye on this, is think about why would Hamas not want Israel to invade? That was the whole plan. Thank you, YM. It's now, again, it's effective, whatever they're doing. Thank you, YM, for that. It's very effective, right? In terms of they have forced Israel to hold off on the invasion. So if that's their goal, it's working. But I don't get it because it doesn't sync with who they are and why they invaded in the first place, right? Hang on a second here. Yeah, I mean, Daryl is saying over on Facebook, propaganda, they're trying to take the heat off of Hamas by doing something good so they can change the narrative and hope people forget what they did. Maybe. I mean, I think they probably are trying to get some good publicity. I guess I'm just not sure why, because again, I'll leave it with this, but you invaded and you killed 1,400 people in the most brutal manner possible. And you filmed it with GoPro cameras because you wanted the world to see how vicious you are. You don't 2 weeks later say, the world thinks we're vicious. Maybe we should release some grannies to look good. You wanted to look vicious on purpose. That was the goal. It's very weird. Anyway, it's very weird. Anyway, we'll keep paying attention to this. Obviously, I just want you to, as you're watching the news, keep thinking about that. Just keep thinking and say, okay, what's going on here? Why are they doing this? I think they are smart, though. Sorry, I mean, Earth to Julia is saying Hamas isn't that smart, but I think politically, I don't know. I think for something like this, they're pulling it off, whatever it is right now with the hostages. In any case, let's keep going here. So, I told you about the first two stories. The convoy, I told you, UN says it's only 4% of the aid they need. Obama was pretty critical of Israel today. I thought this was interesting for President Obama. This was from the Washington Post. Obama said the Israeli government's decision to cut off food, water, and electricity to a captive civilian population in Gaza could worsen a growing humanitarian crisis, but also further harden Palestinian attitudes for generations, erode global support for Israel, play into the hands of Israel's enemies, and undermine long-term efforts to achieve peace and stability. I don't disagree with Obama on this one. Thank you, JR. I will say I am absolutely sympathetic to Israel going into Gaza and destroying Hamas. Absolutely. I am sympathetic to Israel's position in terms of there will be civilian casualties, but Israel is facing the largest attack since the Holocaust. Again, go find some stories. I may even tell you a little bit about it. Go find some stories about the videos from Hamas and how horrific they were. I mean, I could even, well, I always got to watch. If Deb is here, cover your ears. I mean, because it was pretty gross. They're showing, I will tell you right now, anybody who doesn't want to hear, go away for a minute or two. They're showing videos of, again, burned children. They showed videos of adults with their hands tied behind, this is the Hamas videos, the hands tied behind their backs alive, and then they were set on fire alive. They showed a video of a man who was shot by Hamas in kibbutz. And as he's lying on the ground alive, they pulled up a hoe, like I think a hoe is the piece of metal coming down, and kept chopping at his neck, trying to cut his head off while he's alive. And some folks that saw the rest of the video that Israel did not show shows they were actually successful. Okay. They shot a man in front of his, actually, they didn't just shoot him. They saw a man with his two children in one kibbutz, threw a grenade in with them. The grenade killed the father, didn't kill the two children. They then kidnapped the two children. They killed the dog. A dog came to welcome them. Literally, a dog saw them and came up all happy. They shot the dog dead. 2 shots, dead. These are, I'm trying to think of why I was bringing this up again. As far as, well, it goes to that earlier question of why, I know what I was going to say. Hamas put Israel in a position where they have no choice but to go ballistic. But as I said, I think that's the goal. I think that's the whole point of why Hamas did this. They want Israel to kill civilians, meaning kill as collateral damage, which is the military term, meaning you go after them and you end up killing civilians by accident. And they know it'll happen because if Israel goes after Hamas, Hamas uses human shields. Hamas intentionally hides among civilians so that civilians will get killed. Anyway. What else we got here? New York Times did something interesting today. They apologized. The editors wrote a piece basically apologizing for their coverage of that hospital attack. The hospital attack was the explosion at a, I forget which, it wasn't Baptist, Episcopal, something, what it was. Anyway, a Christian hospital in Gaza. And an explosion happened in the parking lot. Hamas and other terrorist groups said it was Israel. The New York Times and others ran with it, said it was Israel. They quoted Hamas's numbers of 500 people dying. And in the end, we found out pretty much every expert now agrees that practically every expert agrees that it was a missile it was a rocket actually from Islamic Jihad, which is another Palestinian terrorist group in Gaza. The missile came from Gaza. As soon as it took off, or the rocket, I should say, as soon as it took off, it started malfunctioning, came down, crashed in the hospital parking lot, blew up, killed possibly a couple hundred people. Everyone agrees now. It's not even, at this point, not even debatable at this point. Baptist, thank you. Was it Baptist? I wasn't sure, Daryl. Not even debatable at this point. But everyone covered it as though it was real. Everyone covered it as though Israel did it because Hamas said Israel did it. Everyone covered it as though 500 people were killed because Hamas said so. Wasn't true. New York Times apologized for it today because they covered it the same way. New York Times also ran a fascinating story today. I've got this on my phone. I'm going to read you a couple paragraphs of how they tried to get, remember, I've been saying for a while now that I think Israel and Hamas, I think the media should make Israel prove their numbers and they should make Hamas, the Palestinians, prove their numbers, right? If you're going to talk about, if you're talking about the number of Israelis killed, prove it to a degree, right? I mean, this is wartime. I'd like to know the numbers are real. If you're going to talk about 5,000 Palestinians being killed, prove it. Prove where you got the numbers from. Absolutely, positively do I mean it. I mean, because the Hamas folks lied. They lied about the hospital attack. They said 500 people were killed by Israel. It looks like it's around 150, possibly, maybe 200 that were killed. And we now know they were killed by Palestinian terrorists. You know, we need real numbers. Look at Ukraine. I will tell you this, as those of us here that cover Ukraine doesn't get covered this way. Nobody quotes Russia's numbers on Ukraine. Nobody does. The media will say sometimes, and it'll be a little story. You know, oh, the Russians claim that the Ukrainians attack civilians, blah, blah, blah. But it's literally like a small claim. With this stuff, the media just quotes it as true. 5,000 Palestinians killed. How do you know this? Hamas said so. Now, some Palestinians are clearly getting killed. Thank you, adventurers. I'm not saying they're not getting killed. We know they're getting killed. We know innocent civilians are absolutely getting killed. We know that. I mean, we've seen the videos, like real videos, right? It's real. But we shouldn't be quoting their numbers. So anyway, New York Times, this was really interesting. Hamas was asked to prove it. Just explain, give us some proof about the hospital bombing. Give us some proof that Israel did it and that 500 people were killed. Just something, right? Listen to this. This was just absolutely amazing. Hang on a second here. I've got to go back to pull this up. Here we go. Let me read you a little bit about this. New York Times. 5 days after Hamas accused Israel of bombing a hospital in Gaza and killing hundreds of people, the armed Palestinian group has yet to produce or describe any evidence linking Israel to the strike, says it cannot find the munition that hit the site, meaning the bomb or the fragments, and has declined to provide detail to support its count of casualties. In the days since, as new evidence contradicting the Hamas claims has emerged, the Gazan authorities have changed their story about the blast. Spokespeople have released death tolls varying from 500 to 833 before setting on 471. The Hamas-run health ministry has also declined to release further details about those 471 victims, and all traces of the munition have seemingly vanished from the site of the blast, making it impossible to assess its provenance. Raising further questions about Hamas's claims, the impact site turned out to be the hospital parking lot and not the hospital itself. By the way, told you guys that last week and people said I was lying. On Sunday, Hamas turned down requests by the Times to view any available evidence of the munition it said had struck the hospital, claiming that it had disintegrated beyond recognition. Quote, the missile has dissolved like salt in the water, said Ghazi Hamad, a senior Hamas official, in a phone interview. It's vaporized. Nothing is left. Where else do we got here? Oh, here we go. Salama Maroof, the head of the Hamas-run government media office, said in a text message, who says we're obligated to present the remnants of every rocket that kills our people? In general, you can come and research and confirm for yourself from the evidence we possess. Again, do I think Netanyahu would lie? Yes. I do not like Netanyahu. I've said it before. Do not trust him. Hamas is a terrorist group. They absolutely positively lie. We should not be quoting what they say as fact. And with the Israelis, I still think it's the same thing with the Israelis. We ought to be looking into what the Israelis claim before we report it as fact. Okay? I mean, even Israel saying there's 222 hostages, I hope some of the media has sat down and said, okay, walk me through who these hostages are, even if we don't report their names, G-Dub. So at the very least, thank you, Frumple. And I saw a lot of gifts come in when I was reading that, but you guys understand why I didn't want to stop, because I sort of was on a roll reading it. So I apologize. Thank you for the... I did see the gifts popping up though, so thank you for that. But that's my problem with this. That's my problem with this is with Ukraine, we don't do it. Okay. I've told you guys with Ukraine, I've told you, I do not report Ukrainian numbers of how many Russians have been killed. I don't report it because honestly, I don't believe the Ukrainian, I love you guys, but I don't believe your numbers, right? I don't believe the Ukrainian government numbers. Thank you, Adventures. And I never report Ukrainian government numbers of how many Russians were killed. I never report Russian numbers of how many Russian civilians were killed because the Russians lie. And for some reason, the media does it when it comes to this. They literally quote Hamas and say, CNN, I was watching this weekend, 5,000 civilians have been killed. Well, Hamas says so. I mean, if you were able to analyze otherwise and you came to that conclusion, perfect, right? Great. Just don't quote Hamas. In any case, all right. Well, now that I've pissed you off sufficiently, let me give a quick pitch, and then we're going to continue with Ukraine. Thank you for the heart there, and we'll do question and answer afterwards, guys. So remember, you can, if you don't like my work, don't worry about it. But if you like what I'm doing, guys, I appreciate the gifts. I do this for free. I do it full time. I've been doing it since the war broke out in Ukraine a year and 10 months ago now, really. Thank you, Boy Mom. And the way I'm able to do it is because basically your guys' gifts. Thank you, Kronos. Your guys' gifts help me pay the bills. And by paying the bills, I'm able to keep doing this. So thank you. So please do keep the gifts coming. Thank you, Mark Starr. Also, there are memberships you can do. You can become a member on TikTok with the SNN. You see some of the guys with it by their name. You can become a member on YouTube, the guys with the green names like Dark Irish and Laka and Chris and Michael and Susan and others. That should be a little $ at the bottom by the comment box. Click it, look for memberships. For you guys on TikTok, there's maybe a star on the page, I think, that you can click for memberships. You can do it on Twitch. You can do it on Ko-fi. You can do it on Discord. A lot of those links you guys can find in my profile on TikTok. Just click the Linktree link and you'll see Ko-fi and all the other stuff. That's about it. That's about it. So lots of ways of helping out. Oh, and finally, if you just would like to donate, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, feel free to go to aravosis.com. It's my Linktree page, which you can find via my links in TikTok. But in general, aravosis.com. Or you guys can find it, mylastname.com. And thank you, Dawn. Very generous. Appreciate it. And you will find my PayPal, my Venmo, etc. Okay, let's keep going here. Ukraine. So day 607. Oops, sorry. There were two things here really quick. Carrie, thank you for the super sticker. Lovely. Oh, I'm sorry. B. Smith. I did see it when we were talking. Okay. B. Smith was raising the thing again. Remember, I say when I do get the super chat questions, I'll always interrupt for those. Sorry, B. I saw it and then didn't get to it. So B. Smith raised the question again about Putin having a heart attack. Has anybody, thank you, user 2119, is anybody seeing this reported anywhere that isn't goofy media we don't trust, right? You know, like all the crazy tabloid media. Are you seeing it anywhere, guys? I'm guessing no. I'm like looking here really quick on my Twitter because I've got a lot of the really good defense types. No. See, this is the interesting. I was going to say, and it's also not, none of my defense folks are talking about it on Twitter either. Now, if this was something credible, you'd see more people. I mean, literally nobody's talking about it on my Ukraine defense Twitter. No, it's BS. It's BS, guys. I mean, not BS, but at this point, it's a rumor that I wouldn't even give any credibility to. Yeah, nope. Devin, any updates why President Biden had to go to the Situation Room? We think so. Today, Biden was giving a speech or something. I don't know what it was. He was somewhere and he said he had to cut it short and said, "Oh, I've got to go off to the Situation Room. There's a situation." We believe that the Iranian surrogates in Iraq, so sort of the militia, terrorist groups, whatever you want to call them, may have attacked another U.S. military base in Iraq, Eastern Syria. Yeah, that more U.S. bases were attacked. Thank you, Kronos. I don't know anything about any casualties or anything like that. We've gotten off pretty lucky so far. One guy died last week, but he died from a heart attack, and it was a false alarm. They thought their base was being under attack. They ran for cover, and he had a heart attack and died. And it wasn't even a real, attack. But that's all we've got. So I suspect it was that. All right. Thank you guys for those. Appreciate it. All right. Let's do Ukraine. So Ukraine, very interesting. It's day 607 of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation. As I said, we'll do Ukraine as well, and then we can do questions on both topics at the end of the show or the second half of the show. Our fundraiser, we are at $1,552. Our goal is $1,971. Thank you, Interbang. We are $419 short. We are raising money to help a drone training center in Ukraine for Ukrainian troops. And we need to get them a couple drones for trainings. We need to get them some motors for the drones because they also make their own drones. Some other equipment they need. And the total they need at this one drone training center, and this is for Ukrainian military, Ukrainian civilians, to learn how to operate drones, obviously for the war. We need $1,971. We know my friend Vlad in Ukraine is helping coordinate this. We know the drone people, the center, the military, or the center that's doing it. And they need $419 more. You guys have chipped in $1,500 already. If you can help out, I would very much appreciate it. 100% of your donation will go to the Ukrainians for these drone parts. Thank you, Rada. You can give by, I will put Vlad directly to my friend Vlad's PayPal. I put it on the screen for you guys. And for you all, you can find Vlad's PayPal via my TikTok. Go to my profile, look at the Linktree link, click it, and the very top thing that comes up will be Vlad's PayPal. Copy that address and enter it in your PayPal. You can't click through because he's in Ukraine and it's more difficult with PayPal. So that just gives you his PayPal info. Go into your PayPal and send the money. We need $419 more. I will keep bothering you until we get the money, but I think in the next day we should be able to do it. As I said, 100% of the money goes to Ukraine. I don't take a dime. Vlad doesn't take a dime. If you want to help the war directly and want to help Ukrainians directly, this is a great way. You're literally buying supplies for the drone training center for the Ukrainian military. So if you can help, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Darren, thank you for that. B. Smith is asking, do you think it's concerning that China is sending warships to Israel? No. and it increases the risk of U.S. going to war with China? No. I don't think China's going to do jack. Now, I mean, China, they said we're sending some warships. China has been trying to sort of poke its nose more into the Middle East, as they are doing in Africa. They're doing a lot to try to sort of, say we're here and we're not going away. Thank you, Rada. But China's not going to get involved. I mean, is China going to start bombing Israel for the Palestinians? No. Is China going to start bombing the Americans? No. Right? I mean, like, none of that's going to happen. So no. I mean, my guess is, thank you for the big hawk for the hat. My guess is the U.S. would probably prefer China not be there, right? I mean, I would think that's true, but they're going to do. I mean, nothing's going to happen as a result. Thank you, Cato. The Russians are more problematic. Even the Russians, I think, would be really careful. But the Chinese, I don't think they have any actual interest in causing trouble. I'm surprised they've even got a ship there, to be honest. It's a little weird, I mean, maybe some Chinese citizens. Actually, we know some Chinese citizens were taken hostage. We do know that. There are some. At the very beginning, they mentioned Russian and Chinese hostages. I don't think it was just killed. I think it was hostages. So that could be why. I absolutely don't. China needs to prepare for a fight with Taiwan. China doesn't need a fight with America in the Middle East. Why would they want it? Go to war with America so you can then pull your weapons away from Taiwan and then China decreases its weapon supply? No way. So yeah, I don't see that as being the case. So anyway, there you go. All right. Let's move on. So Erdogan. So maybe some good news as far as Sweden's bid to join NATO. So that Sweden's been trying to join NATO. Sweden and Finland, right after the Russians invaded Ukraine, thank you, Dawn, announced that they were going to be joining NATO. They wanted to join. NATO was very interested. But to join NATO, each NATO country, there's 31 now, including Finland, each NATO country has to approve, because each country is making a commitment basically to go to war for every other country, right? Thank you, Happy Beach. And Turkey and Hungary were refusing to agree. Now, Turkey, because Erdogan just has been playing games. He was trying to milk the U.S. for more F-16s and fighter jets, all this kind of stuff. Hungary, that's it. I hit a little brain fart there. Hungary is playing another game. Hungary, first of all, keep in mind, Orban, who's the prime minister, who's kind of a dictator, he is a pro-Putin guy, hates Ukraine, loves Putin. So his interest is doing Putin's bidding. And I think that's why he's not approving. Second thing, thank you, Christine. Second thing is he's pissed because Sweden's been criticizing him in the European Union for being anti-democratic. And he is. And he's cut back on the democratic freedoms in Hungary. And the European Union doesn't like that. And we know this, right? The EU has held back, thank you, B. Smith. The European Union, I'm trying to think, was it Hungary? The European Union has held back money from Hungary, though. Right, guys? I'm trying to think here. I'm spacing out here. Yeah, I know they've held back money. Anyway, they want the money, obviously. So he's pissed at the Swedes for that. Well, Erdogan submitted the protocols to it's the legislature that has to approve. He submitted the protocols to the Turkish legislature for them to vote in favor of Sweden. That's great, joining NATO. I would not be surprised if we see, right, Poland was the other one. Poland's the other one where they held back it's like $35 or $38 billion, but because of the Polish elections now, they might be able to pull off getting the money if they go back and be a little more democratic. But in any case, the okay, back to Turkey, right. So Erdogan sends the protocols to the legislature, to the parliament. Parliament needs to pass them. Will the Turkish parliament pass them? Keep in mind, Erdogan several months ago said, well, I will send them to my parliament, but my parliament is not sure yet. He said he would send them. He goes, my parliament still has to be convinced that Sweden deserves to be in NATO. So I worry that what's going on now is that Erdogan has submitted them, but is basically waiting for the parliament to say, oh, we're just not sure. Maybe Sweden should do a few more things for us, or maybe America should give us some more fighter jets. Let's see. I'm a little suspicious. Now, one thing that is interesting I read today, somebody on Twitter, not just somebody who's like a defense type, was saying on Twitter that Erdogan is very keen on becoming a mediator in the Middle Eastern crisis. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken skipped Ankara. They skipped Turkey during his recent Middle East trip, which was interesting, right? The U.S. did signal it would welcome a Turkish role and the U.S. signaled it would welcome a Turkish role in Gaza in mediating only if Turkey ratified Sweden's NATO bid, right? So that's interesting. And then what happens? Today, he sends it to the legislature. So it is possible that Erdogan's ready to agree to Sweden. Then we've still got Hungary, and Hungary's still playing games. And I don't know whether Hungary comes along or whether Erdogan, because, Putin clearly doesn't want it. Let's see. Let's see. It's good news that it's going to the legislature. Thank you, Laura. I'm still not convinced it's happening anytime soon, but let's see. Russia. So Russia, according to the Ukrainians, Russia launched major attacks across the entire Eastern Front in the last few days. They're launching attacks in a couple different places. Avdiivka, which is, get my pen down, right around Donetsk. Kupiansk, up here in the north. Liman, more or less down here. Bakhmut, more or less here. And Marinka's around Donetsk. I forget if it's here. I forget where it is. Maybe it's over here. I forget Marinka exactly, but Marinka's down here as well. The good news is it looks like the Russians are still having a hard time. Avdiivka has been the big battle that's going on. The Russians have poured tons of troops, tons of weapons, and they're not doing very well, which is good news. Now, things are still going slowly. Ukraine's had great successes, but things are still going slowly for Ukraine. That's an issue too. We're probably a couple weeks away from the rainy season starting at most, maybe 2 weeks, and that's going to slow things down significantly. So, be aware. What else we got here? Hang on, put this map out of the way. This weekend, Russia struck the mail facility in Kharkiv, Ukraine, in northeastern Ukraine, killing 6 young workers, all between the age of 21 and 31. Thank you, Pam. The Swedish government just announced that the undersea cable between Sweden and Estonia that was damaged. Remember, this was the data cable that was damaged last week, was in fact damaged by external force, meaning it was damaged by somebody on purpose. We believe quite possibly the Russians, just like the cable that was the gas cable connecting Finland to Estonia. Another analysis of Ukraine's attack last week. So last week, Ukraine got American ATACMS missiles, and they used it against 2 cities. I should say Russian air bases in 2 cities, occupied Berdyansk down here and occupied Luhansk up here. They did a lot of damage to helicopters. As many as 24 Russian helicopters, kind of amazing, blew up. They were very important helicopters because they were the Ka-52s, among others. There were a couple different kinds. The Ka-52 helicopters that the Ukrainians faced at the beginning of the counteroffensive. The Ukrainians were having a very bad time at the beginning of the counteroffensive. Thank you, Joe, because they were sending in some of the tanks they got from the West, and the Russians used their helicopters and just destroyed the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians then had to switch tactics and start going very slowly in the counteroffensive, which obviously slowed them down significantly. These helicopters, one analysis I saw today said that the Ukrainians used about $3 million worth of ATACMS missiles to take out $230 million worth of Russian helicopters. So very cool. Rolling Stone reports that Trump wanted to pull out of NATO during his last term, and if he wins again, he's going to continue to push for the U.S. pulling out of NATO. Apparently, next time around, if Trump wins, he's going to literally demand that NATO countries raise the amount of money they're spending on defense, and if they don't, the U.S. is withdrawing from NATO. He also wants to rejigger the NATO Article 5 promise that states that we will all come to the aid of each other. Incredibly dangerous talk. It is something Vladimir Putin will be very, 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 very happy about. This is something Russia has wanted. How old is NATO? 70, 75 years, right? The Russians are going to be very, very happy at this. Speaking of Russia, Russia's population is set to decrease by more than 7 million in the next 2 decades. Really bad news. I mean, Russia's had a lot of problems with their demographics. We talked about this before. China has too. Russia, you've got, well, COVID. We know COVID was horrific in Russia. They had their own vaccine that wasn't very good. I know AIDS and a lot of other diseases had been before, at least, were out of control in Russia. Just a lot of the drug, but the crocodile, it's called, or something like that. The one of the newer drugs that's just decimated. Anyway, lots of problems in Russia. They then killed a bunch of men in the war. Obviously, the ripe age for having children. 1 million young Russian men fled the country because of the war. Again, ripe age for having children. Russia's in real trouble demographically, and that causes trouble for the economy as well, because again, these are the working age people, but also they're the baby age, the having babies age people. So not good news for Russia's economy. Speaking of the economy, the number of Russians who say their salary does not cover basic spending has jumped by 20% in the 2 years to almost, has jumped by 20% in 2 years to almost half, according to a new survey. Asked whether their salary was enough to cover basic spending without taking into account income from second jobs or investments, just 1 in 5 said yes. Just 1 in 5 said their salary was enough to cover basic spending. The fact that it happened in the last 2 years suggests COVID didn't help and the war. Washington Post has a really big story, very interesting, about the Ukrainian intelligence services and how they've been doing assassinations of Russians, Russian officials, collaborators with the Russians in the occupied territories. What was interesting about this is the article says that I believe it's Ukrainian and American officials confirm that the political assassinations include, in other words, Ukraine did it. Daria Dugina, who's the daughter of that crazy far-right nationalist guy, that basically the Ukrainians were trying to kill him. The daughter took the car instead. He wasn't there. He took a different car. Thank you, Addie. And died. This was outside of Moscow, I believed. In other words, they got a car bomb to Moscow and almost got them because they got the daughter's car. Killed her by accident. The blogger in St. Petersburg was Ukraine, according to this story. How's that for crazy? This was a far-right political blogger. When we say political blogger, I should say this is a little different than here. These guys have a lot of power in Russia because they've got a lot of following. And, well, there is no free press otherwise anymore anyway. But these guys have a lot of power. He was blown up in a cafe owned by Prigozhin, the guy who tried to overthrow Putin, that Putin shot out of the sky. At Prigozhin's cafe in St. Petersburg, they blew up the entire cafe. Now, interesting because, again, how did Ukraine was able to put a car bomb outside of Moscow and blow up a cafe, and blow up a cafe in the way that they got the bomb inside and everything else. I mean, absolutely amazing. And I did get this down. A former senior CIA official said, "We are seeing the birth of a set of intelligence services in Ukraine that are like Mossad in the 1970s, which is the Israeli intelligence services." I've been saying this for a while now. The Israelis are developing intelligence services not the Israelis, the Ukrainians, like the Israelis had and have, where basically they're going to go around the world and they're going to take out every Russian involved with this war for decades to come. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Game legend, we did a nuclear test in Nevada the other day. Did we? Are you sure we did? You sure? Do you think that will make Russia do tests again? Because they said, are you sure about that? I'm not really aware of it, but I'm a little surprised. I did not see. Did we, guys? It didn't seem to cause any news. Let me look here. Nuclear test. 1 second here. Let me just look here. Underground. Okay. Here's the thing. I would want to know, how often do we do them? Okay. Oh, here we go. I'm trying to find. You know what's interesting? It's all the crazy press that covered it. It's all the crazies. There's almost, I'm not finding anybody. Okay, Fox News is the only. Oh, here we go. Bloomberg. Okay. I was going to say it was a lot of crazies. Hang on. Department of Energy detonated an explosion at a Nevada test site. U.S. conducted a high explosive experiment at a nuclear test site in Nevada just hours after Russia revoked a ban. The only issue is, and Bloomberg, of course, blocks the rest of the story, you'd need to know so what. What I mean by that is this the first time the U.S. has done a nuclear test since the treaty came out? Doubt it. Underground. How often do they happen? Right? I mean, that, I don't know, but you'd have to look at the story. That would tell you if it's significant or not. Or is this something we do from time to time? You know, haven't done one in years, Callum says. No, that's interesting. That's interesting then. I mean, if that's the case, then it's interesting. I'm a little surprised we did it, actually. I'm a little surprised. I don't know. I mean, honestly, the Russians pulled out. If the Russians pulled out, maybe we did it because they said, you know what? The Russians pulled out. Let's at least get one test off and get some good data. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. That's interesting, though. If we did one, the Russians will do one. I think that's pretty much a guarantee. You know, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at that. Callum, watch it. Watch it. We don't have to moderate a moderator. Any case, yeah, I don't really know more about it, but I mean, if we did a test, then I'm sure Russia will do a test. But as I was telling Cam, it kind of depends how often we do them and stuff too. And in the past, did Russia care? You know, high explosives, not a nuclear explosion. Well, let's see. Hey, Marion in Denver. All right, a couple more stories, guys, and I don't want to go on too long here. There isn't too much. You know what? That's pretty much it. Okay, we'll stop with that. I mean, I'll do questions now. Keep in mind, we've got our auctions. Let me push the auctions again on our Discord community, discord.aravosis.com. We do auctions to benefit Ukraine. 50% of the auction revenues go back to Ukraine. 50% go to support my work because I do this for free and I do it full time, which is why I hit you guys up for the gifts, because the auction money and the gifts and everything else help me pay my bills, which makes it possible for me to do this show. So thank you for that. So if you like the show, please do pitch in if you can. You can just do the gifts on TikTok or YouTube right now if you like, or the auctions. Our auctions over at Discord are kind of fun. Discord.aravosis.com. We've got a number of things this week. I will only show you a couple of them. A very pretty little bracelet for either women or trendy guys. That's got the Ukrainian. There it is, sort of the Ukrainian map on there, blue and gold Ukrainian covers. Very pretty. This is very popular in the auction. Ukrainian military patch, which is with the Velcro on the back, with the Ukrainian, the sky and the gold, blue and gold, Ukrainian colors. Got more very pretty painted Ukrainian decorative stuff. This is, I mean, it's a cutting board, but you wouldn't use it. It's decorative, but from Ukraine, painted by hand. Very pretty, the Petrikivka style, I believe. And actually, Patron I always love. We've got a Patron button from Patron, the mine or bomb sniffing dog. Very pretty little button. And then finally, and I mean, this one's one of my favorites. It is the Ukrainian symbol, the trident, and an angel carved out of an old Russian shell. And it is a shell fired from I think it's a BMP armored personnel carrier, something like that. I've got it. It's a BMP. Was it 30 millimeter BMP something? This is very cool. I just think it's done beautifully. You know what I mean? Look at this. And also love the idea of taking like an old Russian shell and making it into an angel. You know what I mean? And the Ukrainian sign. A BMP round. That's okay. A BMP round, according to Callum. This what's neat too is this is from Bakhmut, which is where a lot of, I mean, one of the most major battles of the war had been happening for like 9 to 11 months. Anyway, it's very cool. This one's very popular. We've been saying exactly. DD was saying candle holder, exactly that. Daniel's saying the same thing. It would make a great candle. I didn't even think of it. A great candle holder. And you could either do votive if it fits. You'd have to see if it fits in there, but either votive or just even a candle standing up, on just a little bit of wax in there and stick the candle would be beautiful. Anyway, very cool. That's it for now. I've got something I don't want to show you, a machine gun round that has been painted with the Ukrainian trident on it. That's very pretty, a Russian heavy machine gun round, but I don't want to show like something that truly looks like an old bullet. on TikTok and YouTube, because that would be bad. I don't think they'd like that. The piece I showed you is clearly art, but this one's more like an old spent bullet that's got the trident. It's very cool, but again, I'm not going to show you that. Anyway, guys. All right, let's do questions, etc. I'm here, so let's talk. We can talk about Ukraine, talk about Israel, whatever. Which of the two conflicts is most likely to end first? Wow. Thank you, Kronos. I mean, if Israel invades Gaza, it could go on for 10 years. Oh, I wouldn't trust showing around on TikTok. Are you kidding? Arizona Gun Dad? I totally wouldn't trust TikTok with that. Yeah. I mean, maybe, but I don't, I walk softly with TikTok because YouTube might be better about it. I don't know, but TikTok, you never know, you know? The hospital, we pretty much do know, Carrie. I would say we know with, 98% confidence at this point. There's always some doubt somewhere, but all the experts have come out, almost all the experts have come out. Associated Press did a whole analysis. Wall Street Journal did a whole analysis. I mean, a lot of independent folks, the real independent folks, have done the analysis, and they said all the evidence is showing the missile came from Gaza and that it came from the Islamic Jihad terrorist group, basically, that shot the rocket, I should say, shot the rocket, it misfired, came down, and blew up outside of the hospital. So that's the problem. Exactly, Solak. YouTube could demonetize and TikTok could cut off the live. That's exactly it. I would never risk that. Never risk that. Yeah. I just don't want to risk it. In any case, something is up with all the reporting numbers and figures? Not really. I'm just saying that you can't look. Hamas is a terrorist group. I'm not going to trust them any more than I trust Russia for the numbers. They proved it with this attack. They just outright lied. I mean, they knew Islamic Jihad did it, and they came out and said it was the Israelis. And again, what pisses me off, here's why it matters, guys. The Palestinians canceled the peace summit with Biden. It was canceled because of that hospital explosion. Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, pulled out and canceled, okay, because of the hospital explosion, because Hamas and Islamic Jihad, the two terrorist groups, Palestinian terrorist groups, claimed that it was the Israelis. It wasn't. It was Islamic Jihad. And as a result of that lie, and as a result of the media not checking the lie, the summit between Biden and the Palestinians was canceled. Biden was also meeting with King Abdullah of Jordan, with the president of Egypt. This was hugely important, this meeting, and it got killed. Then it sparked worldwide protests for a week. It sparked protests across the Middle East. It set any chance of peace back so significantly. Thank you, Jonathan. Because the media ran with the lie. That's why the stuff matters. That's why the stuff matters. Actually, Carla, the only reason you'd probably get muted is if there's two different, sorry, Carla was asking about muting rules. On TikTok especially, the muting rules are for flags. I don't mind flags. I think if what we don't want is somebody posting the same comment again and again and again and again. So my guess is that might have been what got you if you got muted for a little bit. Oh, actually, Ashley says it was an accident. Sorry. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ash. Carla, Ashley said it was an accident. She didn't mean to mute you. No, you didn't do it, Carla. I just got a message from Ashley saying it was an accident. Sorry about that. Okay. And that would be the other explanation, which is we get so many trolls and stuff that sometimes the mods are going so quickly that they end up doing things to people who didn't do anything wrong. So sorry about that. Ashley's falling on her sword here. Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that, Carla. Okay. But yeah, sometimes this is also a lesson, by the way. If you think you got muted or blocked and you really didn't deserve it, let us know, because it does happen. And honestly, I'm always willing to let people back if they ask, even if you broke a rule. If people ask nicely, we let them back, because I'm not gonna, if you ask nicely, you're obviously an okay person. Anyway, what else we got? Do you think Iran will attack Israel? At the very least, Iran is going to use its proxies. I mean, they're potentially going to use Hezbollah. They probably are already using their sort of allied forces they've got in Syria and Iraq to attack U.S. air bases. The question now is whether Hezbollah, which is the terrorist group in southern Lebanon. Where is this? Which is, allied with Iran, supplied by Iran. Whether they've got 150,000 rockets, a lot. Whether they would attack northern Israel in order, in a bit, they're already attacking in a small way, but in a big way, like with an invasion, in order to make Israel move more troops up here. Because Israel, here's Gaza. Israel wants to fight down here. They don't want to have to fight up here. They don't have to divide their forces. That's the big question. That's the big question. Is would Iran get Hezbollah to invade? I don't know. Do I think Israel's response is proportional? The problem is, because you were saying the people of Palestine are suffering. It is proportional, but not when it comes to the Palestinian people, okay? Because of keep in mind, Hamas is the government of Gaza. It is the Gazan government. It was voted into power and then decided it no longer wanted to hold elections. The Palestinians liked Hamas. They invited him in. They invited him as the leaders, and then no more elections since 2007. But the polls still show 45 to 50% of Palestinians support Hamas. That doesn't mean you kill them, okay? But I'm just saying it's more complicated. As I always say in this issue, it's always more complicated than people will tell you. Just keep that in mind, okay? So in any case, so is it proportional for Israel to invade Gaza? Let's for a moment put the civilian casualties aside just for a moment, okay? Carla says she's still muted. Ash, if you can unmute her, if there's some way to do it. Actually, Carla, what's your screen name over there, just so I can tell them again, because only once it flies by, I don't know if it's hard for them to find it. What's your TikTok screen name? Yeah, they can't find you. Tell me your TikTok screen name again, and I'll tell people. So the deal is that, again, we're going to talk about the civilians in a second. Put the civilians aside. Is it proportional for Israel to invade Gaza? Yes. The government of Gaza attacked Israel in a horrific way. 1,400 people dying in a day is horrific, murdered. And again, point blank range, threw grenades into rooms with parents and children, saw a father with 2 kids, threw a grenade in the room. This was a horrific attack. It absolutely merits being, Callum's unmuting everybody. All right. It absolutely merits, them invading. Now, the question though is she's Carla Love with a K, Carla Love 198. So Carla, LUV 198. Okay. Carla, KARLA, LUV 198. All right. Thanks, Carla. Hopefully they'll get it. Anyway, so here's the deal. But the civilian thing is a problem, right? Because civilians will die. So now, mind you, in war, civilians die anyway. But we talked about this last week. Callum was weighing in, some of the other folks, the other military folks. But you should try to minimize civilian casualties. You do not. Typically, militaries don't decide not to go to war because civilians will die. That's not true. That's not true. They don't. They try to minimize the casualties. Yes. Okay. This becomes a bigger problem. Gaza, super dense, packed full of people, 2 million people in a small area, right? First problem. Second problem, Hamas, which is the government of Gaza, they were originally elected, likes to hide among people. Thank you, Velika. They like to use Palestinians as human shields. So if you're going to go after Hamas, how do you do it without killing Palestinians when Hamas wants you to kill Palestinians? My problem with this issue is that because of the nature of the attack on Israel, because it was such a horrific attack, 1,400 people murdered in one attack, a country of 10 million people. That's akin to 40,000 or more people being murdered here in one attack. Okay, 9/11 was only 3,000 only, right? Because of the nature of the attack, Israel has to declare war on Hamas. Israel, I think, has to destroy Hamas. Yes. The problem is, how do you do it? Because they're in a small country or region or whatever you want to call Gaza. They hide amongst the civilians. So a lot of civilians will die. What do you do? And it is, I think, not an easy question at all. because I think people who say it's an easy question say just don't attack. How do you do that? How do you do that? But how do you, no, I'll say this to anybody. How do you do that? Your country was attacked. 1,400 people were killed. What do? You don't respond because civilians will die, right? Now, mind you, there are alternatives. There are alternatives. I mean, one alternative being discussed by a lot of people is don't invade. Go and do targeted attacks, for the next year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it takes. Go and do targeted attacks and take out the Hamas leadership, which Israel has done in previous conflicts. That's a possibility, right? So to respond to the proportionality question, it can be argued that it's not proportional to invade to take out Hamas if it takes out so many civilians, because maybe Israel does have the option to bomb the hell out of Hamas. Now, the only problem is, as we've seen this week, guys, Israel hasn't even invaded yet. All Israel has been doing is targeted bombings. But the targeted bombings in an urban area, you're going to hit civilians, and they've hit civilians. And people, by the way, people are livid. People are, I mean, I would say the anti-Israel crowd or the pro-Palestinian side is livid about Israel's attack this week, and Israel didn't even invade. So the problem is, these are, I would argue, what Israel's doing this week. They didn't hit the hospital. The hospital was Islamic Jihad. We already established that. But Israel has hit other civilian areas. We know that. I'm not going to deny that, obviously. The problem is, what do you? Like I said, Israel hasn't even invaded. So forget the invasion of Gaza. They're bombing. They're doing strategic bombings. Okay, well, the strategic bombings have the world up in arms. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong here, guys, I think the people who disagree with me think Israel shouldn't respond at all. I think either they think Israel deserved it, or I don't know, but I don't think it's possible for Israel not to respond politically. What do you want Israel to respond to then? I'm curious about the naysayers, because I do think people try to simplify this issue too much. What do you want Israel to do to respond to the terrorist attack? What do you propose Israel do? I'm curious. Brandy's asking on TikTok. Let's see. Some of the TikTok guys. What should Israel do? What should Israel do to respond? What they are doing, but what Israel is doing, well, what they're doing, that's not, what Israel's doing is wrong. Okay, Rebecca, what should Israel do instead? Right. I mean, ground invasion, right. But I'm talking about the critics. What should they be doing instead? Strategic ground invasion? A ground invasion is going to be much worse, way worse in terms of the civilians dying. We know that. See, the people aren't giving the answers. And the occupation, that's not politically tenable. There was just the worst killing of Jews since the Holocaust. They can't just say, okay, we quit. They've got to respond militarily. What do they do? Now, Carla is saying, sorry, Carla. Callum, you unmuted all those people, and Carla's still muted. Sorry. At least the mute isn't permanent, so it'll go away, but sorry about that. I may be able to pull. No, I can't pull it up. You'd be blocked on my end. This is just in here, yeah. Carla says, go in and take them out one by one, but that's the problem. You shouldn't be muted, it said. You're not on the list. Thank you, Ash. You shouldn't be muted anymore. The problem is, going in and taking them out every one is an invasion of Gaza. That is the strategy that we know will kill a lot of civilians, and that we know will kill a lot of Israeli troops. That's the problem. I believe you. Trust me. But they just can't find it. Hopefully in tomorrow's it'll be better. Let me know if it's not. But this is, guys, as I always say, this issue is way more complicated than the naysayers are going to tell you. They can't tell you what Israel should do. They tell you what Israel shouldn't do, but they can't quite tell you. And again, the nice alternative that's being proposed is for Israel. Tom Friedman said this in a very good New York Times article he wrote, saying that Israel should be basically strategically taking out the Hamas leadership. Thank you, Kronos. And some of that is by sending in bombs from outside. And when the bombs come in from outside, they're going to hit civilians. They just will. Oh, thanks, Mandy. I appreciate you going over to Facebook to talk to her. Thank you. Yeah, Carla, Mandy's one of our moderators. If you can help her, see if you can help her there. But anyway, that's my question for everybody is, I don't think there's a very clear answer of what Israel should do other than capitulate. And you don't capitulate once you faced an attack like that. Doesn't mean you go stupid and invade. I mean, right? The U.S., again, look what happened to the U.S. Afghanistan was justified, still a disaster, but justified. Iraq wasn't justified at all. Iraq Bush lied about Iraq. Afghanistan was justified, I think. But again, was it a good idea in retrospect? No, clearly, right? So what do you do? Yeah, see, Teresa, that's not it. The answer is clear. Stop committing apartheid. I know, but the Israelis are going to tell you the answer is clear. Stop committing terrorism. You know? I mean, that's what I'm saying. The folks, you're not answering, you guys, they can't. Bottom line is people can't answer the question. They can criticize Israel, but they can't actually say what Israel should do otherwise, other than literally roll over on its back and say, please don't hurt me. That's all they can say. So that's not a solution. No country is going to roll over and do nothing in response to that horrific. It is a quagmire. Yeah, no, Maddie's saying it's a quagmire. It's a horrific quagmire, Maddie. That's the problem. That's the problem. Yeah. Again, anybody who likes to say, well, look at the last thing they did. Look at the last thing the other guy did. Israel did this. Where Israel, well, again, didn't do the hospital, but Israel hit outside the Greek church and killed civilians. And the Palestinian government attacked the Jews and killed 1,400 of them 2 weeks ago. And the Israelis are occupying the territories. And guess why they're occupying the territories? Because the Palestinians and the Arabs kept invading them to wipe them out. And the F around FO rule, they lost territory because they tried to wipe out Israel in a war. But they tried to wipe out Israel in a war because the Palestinians and the Arabs didn't like the deal they got from the UN because they were giving a Jewish state. But the Jewish state was there because the Israelis got wiped out. The Jews got wiped out in the Holocaust and got wiped out for 3,000 years before that. So again, no, it didn't, Teresa. No, it didn't. It started way before the Nakba, way before. It started 3,000 years ago with Jews being killed and slaughtered, and honestly, thank you, Don. I was talking to a friend about it this weekend who's very up on his history. And even he was saying, not even he, but he was telling me, and he said, just go look at the founding of Israel. People can't agree on the history of the founding of Israel. Thank you, Kronos. The pro-Palestinian side will tell you, they kicked him out. The pro-Jewish side or the pro-Israeli side will tell you, no, they didn't kick him out at all. The UN decided to do, the partition, and the Arabs attacked, and the Arabs kept losing land. I mean, it is a freaking gray mess, and everyone will tell you it's easy. And this is why it's never going to end, because it's not easy. And by the way, there was a pretty good deal 20 years ago. They had 24 years ago, great deal with Clinton, and, the Arabs pulled out, and they had a great deal. So Netanyahu doesn't want peace. The Arabs don't want peace. Palestinian people might want peace. Don't know. Their governments certainly don't. So if nobody wants peace, you're going to keep having war. And then, you blow up Israel, and people get upset, and then they go and they try to hit back, and everyone gets up. I mean, it's just, the settlements are a problem. No, that's true. Yes. Mike Ezra is saying West Bank settlements are a problem. Yes. Yes. No, the right-wing Israelis have been settling in Palestinian areas. That's true. That's pissed me off from the beginning. I think the settlers are horrible. And the settlers, same thing. They couldn't care less. They want war, whatever. I agree with you on that one. Yes. Yes. That I agree totally. But, Anyway, what else? Anybody got other sane questions? It's not insurmountable, but you got to want peace. Again, Clinton had a pretty good plan 24 years ago. Arabs and Palestinians didn't want to agree to it. So what do you do? I don't think Netanyahu wants peace either. I don't think the settlers want peace either. I think most Israelis do. I would suspect most Palestinians do, but their leadership is crazy. I mean, literally, they've got a terrorist group running Gaza. Of course, they voted for them, and they still support them. 45-50% approval ratings is pretty bad for a terrorist group. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Anyway. No, there's plenty of blame. That's the problem. Laka says there's plenty of blame for both, and that's exactly the problem. It is a mess. Can you pin this, please? Pin what? Magical? I don't think I can pin anything anyway. The mods can. Pin what for why? How do we believe the polls and votes? Well, I mean, hang on. You'd have to look at individual polls, I mean, you'd have to kind of look at individual polls and see, was it a, is it a reputable pollster and blah, blah, blah. But I can't tell you. The election was, what did we say, guys? 2005 or 6? And then they stopped having elections like in 2007 or so. I'm within a year here in Gaza, and Hamas has just stayed there ever since. But wasn't 2007 the end of was it the last election? 2007? Okay, I'm still seeing 2006, 07 from people. We know it's around then. Yeah, people are disagreeing. The election was in 2005. They took over in 2006. Israel left after that. Okay, there you go. I'm not so up on the Golan Heights. I mean, I know about the Golan Heights and Syria and all of that, but I'm not sort of up on kind of where that stands right now. No, it's whatever. Anyway, I don't want to sort of lament how much of a mess it is, but it really is. It's just, and it's something you just can't talk to people about, I think, sadly. But I don't know what that means, Brandy. I just don't know what that means. They don't. No. We haven't really seen it, Noah. Noah's saying Middle Eastern immigrants coming into the U.S. across the southern border. We've not seen it. There haven't been a lot of reports of it happening. I mean, the concern is terrorists trying to come across. Yeah, we can go to Discord shortly. A terrorist trying to cross the U.S. southern border. I did read today that there was some kind of a warning put out about that fact. I don't know. Again, this is kind of secondhand. I don't know what it was based on. I don't know if it was based on anything real. But I don't know, but it has not been something that has been an obvious problem. We have not, that just hasn't been in the news here in the States, at least, about, Arab terrorists or Middle Eastern terrorists or Islamic terrorists, whatever you want to call them, coming across the southern border. We've not seen that a lot. So I don't know. Well, I mean, that's a whole other question, whether we know who's coming across the border. Fair enough. But, thanks, Kronos, for that. Anyway, let me do the quick news summary, guys, and then we can go over to Discord for a little bit. Oops, hang on. I'm dropping things here. And my dog is half awake, half asleep under the chair underneath here, looking very cute in her little bed, her little cat bed. All right. Let's do a quick summary of the news, and then we'll go over to Discord. Thank you, Addie, for the gifts on TikTok. 2 more hostages were released today, 2 Israeli women aged 79 and 85. Biden reportedly urged the Israelis to hold off on invading Gaza while hostage negotiations continue. Another convoy of trucks carrying food, water, and medicine entered Gaza through the border with Egypt, but the UN spokesperson said it only amounts to 4% of the usual daily average of commodities entering Gaza. Obama said today, quoted in the Washington Post, basically said that Israel cutting off food, water, and electricity to Gaza was a mistake, and they were basically causing sort of backlash with the Palestinians, etc. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I've not gotten a good explanation as to why Israel cut off all the humanitarian aid. I mean, it's like, yeah, Hamas gets it too, but come on. I mean, I've not seen a good explanation. That did. Now, as I always say, trust me, even if Israel didn't cut off help, humanitarian aid, they would have made up some excuse to get pissed at Israel all week. We saw the hospital BS, the lie about the hospital, right? That was the biggest issue of the week, and it was a lie. They trust me, Israel wouldn't have been in a good place even if it let the food in, but you don't cut off food and water. It's weird, and medicine. I just find it kind of weird, in any case. GoPro footage. There was GoPro footage the terrorists took of the attacks on the Israelis, and the Israeli government showed about an hour and a half of the footage to journalists today. It was horrific, according to some journalists that I know that were there. The New York Times did an article suggesting that Hamas scrubbed the hospital parking lot of any evidence because they didn't want folks to know that the hospital was actually bombed by Islamic Jihad. And the New York Times apologized for reporting that the hospital story, was the Israelis, when now it seems the experts agree it was not. Then Ukraine, we talked about a fundraiser we're doing, guys. We were looking for another $419 for our fundraiser to get basically help do drone training in Israel for Israeli troops and for civilians. And they need another $419 you can give via my friend Vlad. His PayPal is, I will show you again on YouTube. That's Vlad's PayPal. For you guys, you can find Vlad's PayPal in my Linktree link in my profile on TikTok. Click the link there. First thing that comes up will be the Vlad's PayPal address. Copy it, use it in PayPal. Erdogan of Turkey signed Sweden's NATO accession protocol and sent it to the Turkish parliament for ratification. Will the Turkish parliament ratify? I'm not convinced, but let's see. Sweden joining NATO. The Ukrainians say that the Russians launched major attacks across eastern Ukrainian front in the last day or so. In terms of Avdiivka, thank you, Rada, for the Aflac duck. In terms of Avdiivka, which has been the big attack that's been going on, there has not been, doesn't look like there's any, hasn't been going anywhere. The Russians are still not doing well, which is good, What else we got here? Russia struck a mail facility in Kharkiv, Ukraine this weekend, killing 6 people. Swedish government just announced that the undersea data cable between Sweden and Estonia was indeed damaged by external force. Ukraine destroyed $230 million of helicopters last week, the latest analysis with $3 million worth of U.S. ATACMS missiles. Rolling Stone reports that Trump wants to pull out of NATO and is planning on doing so in his second term. The Russian population is set to, thank you, Marie, is set to decrease by more than 7 million in the next 2 decades. The number of Russians who say their salary does not cover basic spending has jumped by 20% in 2 years to almost half. The Washington Post reports that Ukrainian intelligence has been carrying out dozens of assassinations inside the occupied territories, including Russia, and attributed the killings of Daria Dugina, the daughter of the far-right kind of fascist in Russia, and that blogger killed in Prigozhin's cafe in St. Petersburg, attributing it to the Ukrainians, which is kind of wild. And that's it. All right. That is it for the news today, guys. Thank you for joining us. Let's go over to Discord. We'll go hang out a little bit over there. Our Discord is discord.aravosis.com. Come hang out with us. When you get over there, go. I guess I'll have it on. Maybe you'll see it, but go to the upper left-hand corner, look for John's after party, and we'll be there. Turn up your volume when you get there. I'll be talking. You guys will be typing, and, we usually hang half hour or something like that. It's very casual. We usually don't do politics at that point, but go hang with us. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming. A little more water. All right. Let's head over there. And thanks for coming, guys. Thank you, mods. Sorry for the trouble, Carla. And everybody else. I will see you otherwise tomorrow. TikTokers, make sure to follow me. Obviously, I always forget to mention that for you guys. Thank you, Kronos. And otherwise, like I said, Super Hornet, thank you. Otherwise, feel free to just check out my videos on TikTok or come by tomorrow. So, all right. All right, guys. Have a good night. Look for me on Discord, discord.aravosis.com.